So several of you have been asking me to do a video about budget level. One second. Do you think I should be like Casey and wear a suit? So, room's a bit tidier now. Where was I? Oh yes. Several of you have asked if I could do a video talking about the kind of budget level equipment, not so much the cameras and the lenses, but more the kind of cheaper equipment that you can get to go with it, the accessories and the likes. So what should we discuss today? How about filters? Sound good? Let's go. So, let's talk filters. One second. Somewhere in here. I was looking for that as well. I'll be with you in a minute. Aha! Found them. So these are some old filters that I used to have, which I'll come to in a minute. Right, kinds of filters. Well, there's a couple of different ones on the market. For most people, well, let's say for most people, for me, when I first started out in photography, I used UV filters to protect my lenses, graduated, neutral density, and polarizing filters. So the ones that I did buy, bought them on eBay. They were like, I don't know, $5 a piece. They were basically nothing. Now, the problem with buying cheap filters. Back in a minute. Need this. And the problem with cheap filters is you get what you pay for. And when it comes to things like camera optics, the image hitting the sensor is only going to be as good as the worst piece of glass in that lens. So if you buy a really expensive top-end lenses like the Canon Ls or the Sigma Arts or something like that, that are kind of designed for really tack-sharp images, and then you throw a £5 filter in front of them, the image coming through the lens is only going to be as good as what gets through the filter. So kind of renders buying the expensive lens sort of pointless. Now, if you're using budget level lenses, that's not as much of a problem. You might still see some image You might still see some loss in image quality using budget filters, but you won't see as much using budget filters on a budget lens as if you're using budget filters on expensive lenses. Now, you can buy the more expensive filters for the budget lenses, and you are going to see obviously better results. Case in point for all this is why I went back for this. So this is the Sigma 85mm 1.4 art lens. Now this is an absolute beast of a lens for portraits, but this lens has an 86mm front filter thread, and all the other lenses that I have are either 77mm or smaller, so I didn't have an 86mm ND filter, so I bought this one, which is a Cood ND8 86mm, and it's crap. I didn't buy an expensive one, reluctantly, because I rarely get the use out of it, to be honest. It was just for odd occasions. I thought it would be handy to have in my kit bag. Straight off the bat, the very first picture I ever took with this, I thought the lens had completely misfocused. I figured that maybe it just was struggling to see through the neutral density, so I tried live viewing it in manual, and it still looked awful. To the point that I even took this off my lens to make sure I hadn't left some protective filming on there or something, which I hadn't. It's just that poor a quality glass compared to what I'm used to using. As a result, that no longer gets used. And UV filters. Don't bother with those either, because UV filters, to me at least, are a sales pitch. You're a novice, you buy your first camera, and the salesman will always go, oh yeah, you know, make sure you get all your cleaning equipment, make sure you buy this, make sure you buy that, make sure you buy some UV filters to keep your lens protected. Optical glass is tough as balls to begin with, whereas UV filters are wafer thin sheets of glass. So they scratch really easy. So you use UV filters on your lenses and they get really scratchy, and you think, oh wow, that's good. Good job I had those, otherwise this would be in real trouble. And it's not. if something hits the front of this enough that it's going to break the front of it, it will have gone through the UV filter anyway and still put a dent in that. I think I was using UV filters for about the first kind of 12 months that I was starting in photography. Started with the really cheap stuff and then did some comparisons with UV filters on to UV filters off just to see how much of a drop in image quality I got, which then made me get rid of all the cheap filters that I had and buy Hoya Pro UV filters, which are about £20 a piece, because the image quality didn't drop as much with them on. It still dropped a little bit, but not as much. But then I thought, all these lenses that I'm buying, I'm then having to spend an extra £20 every single time for protective filters that really I don't actually need. And so several years ago, stopped fitting UV filters to any of my lenses, and none of them have any scratches on them. Now, circular polarizers and ND filters, I've gone a little bit more upmarket nowadays. So currently I'm using a Hoya Pro circular polarizer. I have a Tiffin variable ND filter, which I think is 2 stops to 8 stops. Don't quote me on that. And then I have my Marmite one, which is a love and hate relationship, which is my Firecast 16 stop ND filter. I absolutely love this filter sometimes, but other times I absolutely despise it. But this is about a £100 filter. Now, I absolutely love this filter and would recommend anyone buy it, and I am going to do a video on it very shortly, but obviously £100 for a piece of glass for a lot of people, completely out of the question. Now, before I got those lenses, my neutral density filter was a newer, I believe. It cost about a tenner on Amazon. It's not a particularly expensive filter at all. That was a 10-stop fixed neutral density, and for a tenner was a good filter. I just found it kind of threw a very red hue to all of my images, which you could kind of work around and kind of filter out in post, but it was just so much of a ball ache for the amount of times that I was using it. I just ended up getting rid of it. But I will leave a link for that particular filter in the description down below. You can take a look at it. Now, my Tiffin variable neutral density, I went straight from eBay special, jumped straight to that. I didn't go through any kind of middle of the road. However, I do know that there are several decent quality ones that are kind of quite budget friendly out there. Now, Polaroid do a 77mm one that is, I think, about £25 on Amazon. I've not personally used it, but I have heard good things about it. And for me personally, if I was in the market for a cheap variable ND filter, that is the one that I would go for. So I'll leave a link for that below. I did the same with the circular polarizer because I pretty much went straight from eBay special to Hoya Pro because I was buying Hoya Pro UV filters at the time. I bought this as well, and then obviously binned off the UV filters. Now, the 77mm Hoya Pro currently on Amazon is £43, which might be a bit expensive for some people, particularly if you're kind of just experimenting with polarizers. But Hoya also make non-pro series of filters. So the non-pro version 77mm is £31 on Amazon, which might be an option for you. But if you're just after your very first polarizer to have a play around with it, you could look towards an Amazon Basics one or a Polaroid. They're £11, £12 a piece. So they'll be good enough to kind of show you the potential of a polarizer, and then if further down the line you do want to upgrade, you've not really spent that much on the filter to begin with. Graduated filters, I don't bother with personally, because I'm either using a polarizer or using a neutral density, which kind of means that I can't then add a graduated on top of it, or I shoot bracketed and then just edit in it afterwards. So I know it's a little bit of cheating. For me personally, I just don't use graduated filters. So I think that's it. Have I missed anything? If I have, leave a comment down below. Hope this has helped some of you guys out. Like I said, check down below for all those links to all of the items that I've mentioned. Thank you so much for stopping by, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video.